Regional District of Bulkley-Nechako recently completed a parks and outdoor recreation study. Currently, the Regional District does not provide any parks or outdoor recreation services, and they do not have any staff focused on managing or developing parks or trails. The study develops ideas for what a new service could look like and cost, and seeks to better understand the needs and demands across the region. The study also tries to understand the types of challenges that local volunteer clubs face in managing assets and exploring ways the Regional District could better support those clubs. The scope of the study includes the entire Regional District of Bulkley-Nechako from Smithers to Vanderhoof. It includes a variety of both motorized and non-motorized outdoor recreation activities. This work started in October 2019, and the engagement process involved interviews with 42 outdoor recreation clubs, a community survey that received 482 responses, a focus group with participants from local, provincial, and First Nation governments across the region, interviews with 40 government representatives and elected officials, and the process wrapped up with 7 open houses that drew over 200 people. During this video presentation, we will share key findings from the process, and we will end the presentation with 3 examples of what a Regional District Parks and Outdoor Recreation Service could look like and cost. The initial survey was shared in October, and 50% of respondents were from the Smithers region, followed by 16% from the Vanderhoof area and 12% from the Burns Lake area. When we asked residents about the types of challenges they face when they recreate, the most common response related to maintenance. The second most frequent comment related to a lack of both directional signage on trails and difficulties finding information about trailhead locations. The issue of poorly maintained access roads and poor access to lakes and rivers was frequently brought up. We also had a lot of comments about boat launches not being maintained or not existing at all. And finally, there were many comments about the need for more trails and recreation areas that are close to town and friendly for all members of the family, no matter what age or ability. When we completed the interviews with 42 clubs, we heard some similar themes. Again, maintenance was the #1 challenge. Clubs expressed that volunteer capacity is simply being exceeded, and it is difficult to secure funding for maintenance. Clubs also spoke about a lack of volunteers, and in many cases, aging volunteers and a small population base was part of this challenge. Clubs also spoke to the need for more accessible recreation that is close to town and accessible for people of all ages and abilities. Some clubs expressed frustration with the amount of time they spend administering agreements with other government agencies and expressed that they would prefer to spend their volunteer hours with more hands-on work. Finally, many clubs expressed that the high cost of insurance can be a limiting factor in hosting events and operating trails. All of these challenges are interconnected, and one issue may intensify another. For example, without enough trail maintenance and volunteers, it's difficult to create a high standard of trail maintenance to make trails accessible and family-friendly. Clubs also spoke about the importance of having insurance before any volunteers can actually start work on the trails. We took all of the feedback we heard and synthesized it into 7 common needs. The RDBN will use this as a checklist to ensure that any new service that is developed is meeting the local needs. We also developed 8 principles to guide the creation of a new service. These principles will serve as a tool to help the Regional District ensure that they are achieving what they set out to do. Once we understood the needs and challenges, we wanted to create an opportunity to talk about what an outdoor recreation service could look like. So we developed these 5 building blocks that represent the different elements of an outdoor recreation service. The first 2 are focused on how the service will be administered and coordinated. The blue block involves hiring a Regional District employee to run the service. The second block is the green block. This block represents a different operating model whereby the service would be administered by a nonprofit organization. An example of this is the YMCA in Vanderhoof, where the YMCA serves as a nonprofit organization delivering a service on behalf of the local government. The third block is the orange block, and it involves the Regional District owning and managing outdoor recreation assets. These types of assets could include boat launches, river and lake access, trails, as well as new parks. The last 2 blocks relate to funding for clubs. The red block represents the Regional District entering into multi-year agreements to provide clubs with a sustainable funding source, while the yellow block represents the Regional District providing annual grants to clubs to help them meet their needs. We brought these building blocks with us to 7 open houses across the RDBN and asked for feedback from residents. We also posted all of the open house displays and feedback forms on the Regional District's website in order to reach people who were not able to attend an open house. In total, we received 137 feedback forms and had over 200 residents attend the sessions. It is important to note that the responses from the feedback forms cannot be generalized to the broader public, as only a small portion of the population filled them out. However, the feedback forms combined with information from the survey and interviews with clubs provide some indication of the level of support for a new service within each community. When we asked people about the blue and green blocks, 73% said they would support the regional district hiring an employee, and 29% said they would support the nonprofit model. When we asked about the idea of the regional district being involved as an owner of outdoor recreation assets, 75% of residents were in support of that idea. When we asked about providing funding to clubs, 91% of respondents supported the use of multi-year agreements to help volunteer clubs maintain their recreation assets. Many of the survey respondents included comments of praise for volunteers, and it seems that generally local residents place a lot of value on the volunteer work that these clubs do. The feedback form didn't explicitly ask about grants, but many clubs expressed a desire for multi-year agreements rather than grants. We used the building blocks to create 3 examples of what a regional district outdoor recreation service could look like. These scenarios are examples only and seek to show what is feasible with the local tax and population base. Each scenario has been designed to meet the local needs and demands that we heard through the engagement process. Scenario 1 proposes that all electoral areas participate in the service. Scenario 2 would serve electoral areas A, B, and E only. So under Scenario 2, Vanderhoof, Fort St. James, Fraser Lake, Fort Fraser, Houston, and Grand Isle would not be part of the service. For Scenario 3, we present an option where only Area A is part of the service. Each scenario requires some level of regional district staffing resources. By having an employee dedicated to this role, the regional district will have the capacity to develop and administer funding and partnership agreements with clubs, as well as develop and oversee maintenance of regional district-owned parks and trails. This employee would also be responsible for leading parks and recreation planning processes, promoting and advertising local recreation areas, and building partnerships. Scenario 1 has the largest budget and the most staff resources because it serves a larger area than Scenario 2 and 3. The building blocks show you how the budget would be spent. For all 3 scenarios, approximately half of the budget would go towards administration and maintenance of regional district-owned assets, while the remaining half would go towards providing funding to clubs. All of these examples assume that both municipal and rural residents pay into the service. If municipal residents do not contribute, then the total budget would decrease by approximately 50%. The scenarios propose a higher tax rate for areas A, B, and E because these communities expressed a higher level of support for a new service. We propose tax rates that would be tolerable for taxpayers while still generating sufficient funding to meet local needs and demands. If Scenario 1 was implemented, residents in areas C, D, F, and G could expect to pay an average of $9 to $13 per year, and residents in areas A, B, and E could expect to pay an average of $23 to $47 per year. Scenarios 2 and 3 propose a slightly lower tax rate for Area A, which works out to approximately $44 for the average Area A homeowner each year. The tax rates for areas B and E are the same in Scenario 1 and 2. The most important thing to know about these examples is that they all suggest that the regional district direct approximately half of the budget towards funding to clubs and the other half of the budget towards owning, managing, and operating regional district-owned parks, trails, and assets. This is a unique made-in-the-Bulkley Valley approach and allows the local volunteer clubs who have driven the development of outdoor recreation assets to continue to grow and maintain their assets. This study started a dialogue across the region about the idea of creating a new service for residents. The next step will be for the regional district to take all of this information into consideration to create an implementation plan. The implementation plan will outline which communities will participate in the service and what the taxation structure will look like. We want to say a big thank you to everyone who participated in this study, especially the 42 clubs who gave us their time for interviews. Thanks to everyone who filled in the surveys, attended an open house, or filled out a feedback form. All of your feedback allowed us to create a study that reflects local needs. If you're looking for more information, please check out the report at www.rdbn.bc.ca/recreation.